The House will come to order.
Oops.
Prayer by the chaplain.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and for all the representatives present here. Thank you for the ways you are touching their lives and the lives of the loved ones. As we remember the tragic event that took place on this day just 19 years ago, Father, I pray for continued healing and forgiveness in this country. I pray that our great state of Minnesota, in this time of such division, can stand united together in the sole purpose of honoring you and loving those around us, even if we fully can't understand or agree with how each other feel. Father, I pray against the fear that is consuming this country. I pray that that fear doesn't blind us from seeing the needs of so many around us. You've called us to seek out those who are hurting and afraid and to bring comfort, not fear. And if anyone here is experiencing that fear, I ask that your truth and your peace consume them right now. I pray for the students and the teachers as they transition into this new school year. I pray for your protection and safety as they take on this year, which will contain so many new experiences. I pray those experiences are positive and life-giving. Father, I know you see us all right where we're at. Some afraid, some angry, some maybe don't know how to feel anymore. Whatever the feeling, help them trust and lean on you more and more each day. Bless their families for allowing them to put in the time to do this good work our state so desperately needs. They are so important to so many. Bless them, Father. In your holy, precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. The chaplain for today is Pastor Ben Myatt from Watermark Church, Stillwater, Minnesota. Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. A copy of the proclamation from the governor is on each member's desk and also online. The clerk will take the roll. Today we have a little technological obstacle. The House desk is not able to unmute members. Members will have to unmute themselves, and they can do that by pressing *6. The clerk will take the roll.
Acom.
Acom, St. Paul, present.
Acom, St. Paul, present. Albright.
Albright, Prior Lake, present.
Albright, Prior Lake, present. Anderson.
Anderson, Barsness Township, present.
Anderson, Barsness Township, present. Backer.
Backer, Hoffman, present.
Backer, Hoffman, present. Bonner.
Bonner, St. Paul, present.
Bonner, St. Paul, present. Barr.
Barr, East Bethel, present.
Barr, East Bethel, present. Baker.
Baker, Wilmer, present.
Baker, Wilmer, present. Becker, Finn. Becker, Finn, St. Paul, present. Bennett. Bennett. Bernardi.
Bernardi, St. Paul, present.
Bernardi, St. Paul, present. Bierman.
Bierman, St. Paul, present.
Bierman, St. Paul, present. Bow.
Bow, St. Paul, present.
Bow, St. Paul, present. Brand.
Brand, St. Peter, present.
Brand, St. Peter, present. Cantrell.
Cantrell, St. Paul, present.
Cantrell, St. Paul, present. Carlson A.
Carlson A, St. Paul, present.
Carlson A, St. Paul, present. Carlson L. Carlson L. Christensen.
Christensen, St. Paul, present.
Christensen, St. Paul, present. Claflin. Claflin. Considine, excused. Daniels. Daniels. Daudt.
Doubt, Crown, present.
Daudt, Crown, present. Davids. David, St. Paul, present. Davney. Davney. Dean.
Dean, Minneapolis, present.
Dean, Minneapolis, present. Damath.
Damath, Cold Spring, present.
Damath, Cold Spring, present. Detmer.
Detmer, Forest Lake, present.
Detmer, Forest Lake, present. Drazkowski. Drazkowski, St. Paul, present. Eklund.
Eklund, International Falls, present.
Eklund, International Falls, present. Edelson.
Edelson, Edina, present.
Edelson, Edina, present. Elkins.
Elkins, St. Paul, present.
Elkins, St. Paul, present. Erickson.
Erickson, Princeton Township, present.
Erickson, Princeton Township, present. Fabian. Fabian, St. Paul, present. Fisher.
Fisher, Maplewood, present.
Fisher, Maplewood, present. Franzen.
Franson, St. Paul, present.
Franzen, St. Paul, present. Freiberg.
Freiberg, Golden Valley, present.
Freiberg, Golden Valley, present. Garofalo.
Garofalo, Rosemont, present.
Garofalo, Rosemont, present. Gomez.
Gomez, St. Paul, present.
Gomez, St. Paul, present. Green.
Green, Foston, present.
Green, Foston, present. Grossel. Excused. Grunhagen. Grunhagen. Gunther.
Grunhagen, Glencoe, present.
Grunhagen. Glencoe, present. Gunther.
Gunther, Fairmont, present.
Gunther, Fairmount, present. Haley. Haley. Halverson. Halverson. Hamilton. Hamilton. Hanson.
Hanson, St. Paul, present.
Hanson, St. Paul, present. Hassan.
Hassan, Minneapolis, present.
Hassan, Minneapolis, present. Hausman.
Hausman, St. Paul, present.
Hausman, St. Paul, present. Heinrich.
Heinrich, Anoka, present.
Heinrich, Anoka, present. Heinzman.
Heinzman, St. Paul, present.
Heinzman, St. Paul, present. Herr. Herr. Hertos. Hertos. Hornstein.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present. Howard.
Howard, Richfield, present.
Howard, Richfield, present. Hewitt. Hewitt, St. Paul, present. Johnson. Johnson. Jordan.
Jordan, St. Paul, present.
Jordan, St. Paul, present. Jurgens.
Jurgens, St. Paul, present.
Jurgens, St. Paul, present. Keel.
Keel, Hammond Township, present.
Keel, Hammond Township, present. Cleveland.
Cleveland, St. Paul, present.
Cleveland, St. Paul, present. Cagle.
Hagel, Spring Lake Park, present.
Cagle, Spring Lake Park, present. Katiza-Watun.
Katiza-Watun, Prairie, present.
Katiza-Watun, Eden Prairie, present. Kosnick.
Cosmic, Lakeville, present.
Cosmic, Lakeville, present. Creeshaw. Creeshaw, Little Falls, present. Kunish Podine.
Kunish Podine, Robbinsdale, present.
Kunish Bodine, Robbinsdale, present. Lehman. Lehman. Lee.
Lee, Brooklyn Center, present.
Lee, Brooklyn Center, present. Lesh.
West, St. Paul, present.
Lesh, St. Paul, present. Liebling.
Liebling, Rochester, present.
Liebling, Rochester, present. Lean.
Lean, Moorhead, present.
Lean, Moorhead, present. Lily.
Lily, St. Paul, present.
Lily, St. Paul, present. Lippert.
Lippert, Northfield, present.
Lippert, Northfield, present. Lislegard.
Lislegard, St. Paul, present.
Lislegard, St. Paul, present. Long.
Long, Minneapolis, present.
Long, Minneapolis, present. Lucero. Lucero, St. Paul, present. Lewick.
Lewick, Aiken, present.
Lewick, Aiken, present. Mahoney.
Mahoney, St. Paul, present.
Mahoney, St. Paul, present. Mann, excused. Mariani. Mariani. Marquardt.
Mariani, St. Paul, present.
Mariani, St. Paul, present. Marquardt.
Marquardt, Dilworth, present.
Marquardt, Dilworth, present. Mason.
Mason, St. Paul, present.
Mason, St. Paul, present. McDonald. McDonald. Mecklin.
Mecklin, Becker Township, present.
Mecklin, Becker Township, present. Miller.
Miller, St. Paul, present.
Miller, St. Paul, present. Moeller.
Moeller, St. Paul, present.
Moeller, St. Paul, present. Moran.
Moran, St. Paul, present.
Moran, St. Paul, present. Morrison.
Morrison, Deep Haven, present.
Morrison, Deep Haven, present. Munson.
Munson, Lincoln Township, present.
Munson, Lincoln Township, present. Murphy.
Murphy, Hermantown, present.
Murphy, Hermantown, present. Nash. Nash, St. Paul, present. Nelson M.
Nelson M., St. Paul, present.
Nelson M., St. Paul, present. Nelson N.
Nelson N., Clover Township, present.
Nelson N., Clover Township, present. New. New, St. Paul, present. Noor.
Nor, St. Paul, present.
Noor, St. Paul, present. Nornis.
Nornis, Fergus Falls, present.
Nornis, Fergus Falls, present. Novotny.
Novotny, Elk River, present.
Novotny, Elk River, present. O'Driscoll.
O'Driscoll, Sartell, present.
O'Driscoll, Sartell, present. Olson. Olson, St. Paul, present. O'Neill.
O'Neill, Maple Lake, present.
O'Neill, Maple Lake, present. Pulowski. Pulowski. Purcell.
Purcell, St. Paul, present.
Purcell, St. Paul, present. Petersburg. Petersburg. Pearson.
Pearson, Rochester Township, present.
Pearson, Rochester Township, present. Pinto.
Pinto, St. Paul, present.
Pinto, St. Paul, present. Poppy.
Poppy, Austin, present.
Poppy, Austin, present. Poston.
Poston, Lake Shore, present.
Poston, Lakeshore, present. Pryor.
Pryor, St. Paul, Present.
Pryor, St. Paul, present. Quam.
Quam, Byron, present.
Quam, Byron, present. Richardson.
Richardson, Mendota Heights, present.
Richardson, Mendota Heights, present. Robbins. Robbins, St. Paul, present. Runbeck.
Runback, Circle Pines, present.
Runbeck, Circle Pines, present. Sandell. Sandell. Sandsted.
Samstead, Hibbing, present.
Sandsted, Hibbing, present. Sauk.
Oak, Rochester, present.
Sauk, Rochester, present. Schumacher.
Schumacher, St. Paul, present.
Schumacher, St. Paul, present. Schultz.
Schultz, Duluth, present.
Schultz, Duluth, present. Scott.
Scott, Andover, present.
Scott, Andover, present. Stevenson.
Stevenson, Coon Rapids, present.
Stevenson, Coon Rapids, present. Sundin.
Sundin, St. Paul, present.
Sundin, St. Paul, present. Swazinski.
Swazinski, Castle Rock, present.
Swazinski, Castle Rock, present. Tabke.
Tabke, St. Paul, present.
Tabke, St. Paul, present. Tice.
Tice, St. Cloud, present.
Tice, St. Cloud, present. Torkelson.
Torkelson, Hanska, present.
Torkelson, Hanska, present. Erdahl.
Erdahl, Acton Township, present.
Erdahl, Acton Township, present. Vang.
Vane, Brooklyn Center, present.
Vang, Brooklyn Center, present. Vogel.
Vogel, Elko Newmarket, present.
Vogel, Elko Newmarket, present. Wagenius.
Wagenius, Solom Township, present.
Wagenius, Solom Township, present. Waslowick.
Waslowick, St. Paul, present.
Waslowick, St. Paul, present. West.
West Blaine, present.
West Blaine, present. Winkler. Winkler, St. Paul, present. Wagamot.
Wall, present.
Wagamot, St. Paul, present. Zhang J. Excused. Zhang T.
St. Paul, present.
Zhang T, St. Paul, present. Joachim.
Joachim, St. Paul, present.
Joachim, St. Paul, present. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, St. Paul, present. Bennett. Bennett. Carlson L.
Carlson L., St. Paul, present.
Carlson L. St. Paul, present. Claflin.
Claflin, St. Paul, present.
Claflin, St. Paul, present. Daniels. Daniels.
Daniels, present.
Daniels, present. Davney. Davney. Haley.
Haley, Red Wing, present.
Haley, Red Wing, present. Halverson.
Halverson, St. Paul, present.
Halverson, St. Paul, present. Hamilton. Hamilton. Her.
Her, St. Paul, present.
Her, St. Paul, present. Hertos.
Hertos, Greenfield, present.
Hertos, Greenfield, present. Johnson.
Johnson, Isanti, present.
Johnson, Isanti, present. Lehman.
Lehman Cohasset, present.
Lehman, Cohasset, present. McDonald. McDonald. Pulowski.
Pulowski, Winona, present.
Pulowski, Winona, present. Petersburg. Petersburg. Sandell. Sandell. Davney.
Dabney, St. Paul, present.
Davney, St. Paul, present.
Thank you, Dabney. Leave it.
Bennett.
Bennett, Albert Lee, present.
Bennett, Albert Lee, present. McDonald. McDonald. Petersburg. Petersburg. Sandell. Sandell. Hamilton.
Members, we're going to try to get those members who aren't able to connect on the Zoom on telephone so that we can record their participation. Just take a minute here.
Thank you.
Hamilton.
Hamilton.
Hamilton, Mountain Lake, present.
Hamilton, Mountain Lake, present.
Petersburg.
Petersburg.
Petersburg, Wasika, present.
Petersburg, Wasika, present. McDonald? McDonald. McDonald, Annandale, present. Sandell. Sandell, Woodbury, present. Thanks.
A quorum is present, and pursuant to Minnesota Statutes 2018, Section 3.073, I declare the House organized for this special session. Representative Winkler offers the following motion. The Chief Clerk will read the motion.
Winkler moves that the Chief Clerk be and is hereby instructed to inform the Senate and the Governor by message that the House of Representatives is now duly organized pursuant to law for this fourth special session.
Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, members, this is to tell the Senate that we are setting a new record for special sessions.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. Members, we're going to take a moment to recognize today as 9/11, and we're going to go first, if we can, to Representative Eklund, if he can unmute and begin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker and members, 19 years ago this morning, we all witnessed an event that shook our nation to its core. We all remember where we were when we saw the attacks on television or heard the news about them. The attack on New York City that day served as an attack on all of us Americans. And following that, the world saw us all come together in an unmatched show of resiliency and unity. While our hearts were hurting for those who lost their lives in this tragedy, our hearts were also strong with pride in our response. Strangers looked out for one another, putting their lives on the line as part of their patriotic duty to these United States of America. That day, 2,977 people were killed, including 343 firefighters and 71 law enforcement officers. Nearly 2 decades later, the first responders still with us continue to face ongoing health challenges as a result of their heroic efforts on September 11th. In the following weeks, months, and years, members of our armed forces answered the call to service so that justice could be delivered. We can never repay these men and women and their families for their bravery and sacrifice. And today, on this solemn anniversary, we take time to recognize them. Our great nation will be forever grateful to the first responders who arrived on scene that day to take action in a situation no one could possibly fully trained or prepared for. These brave folks started their days as police officers, firefighters, and paramedics, but ended their days as heroes. While I'm confident none of us will ever forget these horrific events, we must also remember what defines us: resiliency, unity, a resolve to overcome insurmountable challenges. As we look back on the events of September 11th and honor those who, during this tragedy today, especially during the difficult times we can currently find ourselves in, I hope we can all commit to looking deep within all of us to remember what we're all capable of as Americans, the same way we did following the tragedy that fateful morning. Thank you, Madam Speakers and members.
Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. I do remember where I was 19 years ago today. I didn't know what had happened because I was on an airplane flying into Washington, D.C. It was like a normal every other day. My boss and I started off at the airport and got on a plane and took off. And for those of you that fly a lot, you can kind of tell the rhythm and temper of an airplane when it begins to slow down and you glide into the landing, and it's something that becomes very routinized for you. Well, that didn't happen. We were put down very quickly. And as is almost a reflective reflex, we stand up and we turn on our phones because that's what you do when you land. My phone rang immediately, and it was my wife who had been redialing again and again and again and again because she thought I was dead. I was supposed to be landing in D.C., and she thought that our plane had been one of the ones that had been hijacked and would have been run into the ground. My business partner was having the same conversation with his wife, and we got off the airplane somewhat stunned. We watched as other people were getting similar phone calls, and we walked out into the concourse where they have televisions that were hanging down as they always do, and it was the news, and it was pictures of things burning, planes flying into the World Trade Center, planes then flew into the Pentagon, and then crashed into a field in Pennsylvania. We recognized very clearly that we were not going to be flying home, nor would we be flying anywhere else. So we split up. I went and got our bags. My boss went and got a rental car. Rental cars were in short supply, and Because we traveled so much, we had that special card that says you can show up anytime you want and take any car you want. So he did. And we took about 3 other people with us, and we made a very long drive home. That day, we've got 5 perfect strangers in a car. You would normally assume that we would be talking to one another, and we did not say really more than a handful of words. We would answer phone calls from loved ones, and we drove, deposited people, and drove some more, deposited more people, and then drove home, got to the airport, picked up my truck, and went home. Hugged my family. I'm struck by what happened that day, but also struck by what happened a week later. My boss and I got on another airplane a week to the day. The flight crew said, hey, everybody line up on one side of the airplane because we want to show everybody that the plane is full. It wasn't. It wasn't full at all. We flew to New York City to do a speaking engagement there, and we got to the hotel, stashed our bags, and walked a couple of miles to Ground Zero. And as you got closer to Ground Zero, you could smell the burn of the building and the bodies and the stench of death that was there. And that was really something to take in and sort of think about. As we were walking too, we saw police and firefighters and military, and we stopped to thank each one of them because they all knew somebody or they themselves had rushed towards the danger that day. That's what first responders do. Police, firefighters, the Port Authority, EMTs were all rushing towards danger, and we just let them know that we were grateful, and I'm still grateful to this day. So we got to Ground Zero, and we were there, and we saw the pictures that you all remember of people posting things on chain link fences of people who were missing or people who had died. Can you help us find this person? And you know, my boss is not a very emotional person. He's kind of a big grizzly bear, but he was crying. We all were. And I recount this story to you to tell you I remember vividly that we didn't care if you were Republican or Democrat. We were all Americans for a very long time. And we'd do anything for each other. We honored those that ran towards danger. I just want to remind you how great that was, that we honored those people because a lot of them died in the buildings. A lot of them died in the Pentagon. When the 2 towers came down, my friend Darren called me. He goes, "You're never going to believe what happened." And he said that they were just falling down. That was a bad day for America. And I will tell you that every flight, and I fly a lot, every flight that I've gotten on since then, I think about that day. Every single day. And 19 years is a long time. You know, I've got kids that are now 19. My wife was pregnant with one of them. It's kind of an interesting reminder. But please don't forget these 19 years forward, what happened that day to our country, because it was a declaration of war, and we all became very, very close. You saw someone that needed something, you went and helped. You'd stop and you'd thank a cop or a firefighter or an EMT, Representative Hewitt. You'd thank people who were there serving our fellow man. Let's not forget that today, because we need to thank those people on a daily basis. Because while we and the people that were at Ground Zero were running away, they were running into the fire. They were climbing the stairs to get people out, and a lot of them didn't make it. So for me, as you can tell, this is an emotional day. It's kind of hard when your spouse calls you thinking that you're dead. So let's kind of embrace this day. And it's very ironic that we're here on this day, and I appreciate, Madam Speaker, you letting us talk about this, because America is still in need of remembrance and healing for this event. We are still in need to remember and thank those people who rush into danger for us every single day. So I encourage you to lock this away in your heart and make this a part of your consciousness, and do not forget what happened this day 19 years ago. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Nash and Representative Eklund. Those were wonderful words. 19 years ago today, I got up in the morning, got the boys ready to go to kindergarten, well, one ready to kindergarten, another one to daycare, and we heard the news. And I had my wife drop the kids off, and I went right into LifeLink that day. It was the strangest day of my whole work history because we didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I kissed my kids for the last time. We had no idea. None of us did. The police officers, the paramedics, the firefighters, because we didn't know what was going to happen here in Minnesota. We were scared. What was going on in New York was everything you just heard. There's something about people that are working as first responders, police officers, firefighters, medics and EMTs, and even those that are first responders from home. This career does not choose, you don't choose it, it chooses you. And your DNA is programmed that when people are running from a scene, you're running in. You don't care about your own safety. You don't think for 1 minute about your kids, which is just ridiculous. But that's what these people are programmed to do. And we've seen it during the 9/11 attacks in New York, and we see it every day. And we have to remember what they give up for this. I mean, it really does, and I don't want to get too emotional here, but Representative Nash hit it right on the head. They give up so much and their families pay so much for this. I had the opportunity to go to the 9/11 site with a number of my colleagues on a trip when it was first, it's still in construction, but a lot of the names are there of our brothers and sisters that perished in that situation. And there's very few times in your life, and all of you know them, when they're surreal. One day when I walked on the House floor, that was surreal. But this time was different when I saw that. This time I could only compare it to the first time I went to the Vietnam Memorial and seen my brother's name on that wall. That was a surreal moment, and when I went to the 9/11, that was surreal. I want to remember those in New York that died 19 years ago, but I also want you to know we have members in our own chamber here that answer that call every night. Representative Johnson, Representative Grossel, Representative Navani, Representative Backer, and to my surprise, and she kept this quiet from us, Representative Sandstead is a firefighter for her community. So that's pretty neat that we do have members, but all of us are like that. We're all called to serve. So this is a very emotional time for me. I remember those. I had a few friends that did die in 9/11, but I have friends that died between now and 9/11 that have answered the call to serve. Today, we're seeing the same thing. Regardless where you sit on the COVID argument, first responders, when they get the call for someone not breathing, run into that house and do everything they can. And we've had first responders come down with this bad disease. So we're seeing it today by first responders putting their own safety aside and taking care of us. So I really I'm not able to do this anymore because of our great job here, but next time you see one of us, one of the first responders, the police officers, the paramedics, the firefighters, the EMTs, say thank you. And today I ask you to pray for them or give them a thought. Madam Speaker, I ask for a moment of silence to recognize 9/11.
Members, please join me for a moment of silence to remember all those who lost their lives on 9/11. Introduction of bills. The following House files have been offered for introduction today. The Chief Clerk will report the House files and give them their first reading.
Introduction and first reading of House Files 1 through 34.
First reading House Files 1 through 34. Message from the Senate.
Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. This is to notify you that the Senate is now duly organized for the 2024 special session pursuant to the Minnesota Constitution and Minnesota statutes. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate.
Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there is no objection, we'll take action on those motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail.
Daudt introduces House Concurrent Resolution Number 1, a House Concurrent Resolution relating to Minnesota's peacetime emergency, terminating the peacetime emergency pursuant to the authority granted under Minnesota statutes, Section 12.31, Subdivision 2, Paragraph B. New moves that the rules be so far suspended that House Concurrent Resolution Number 1 be now considered and placed upon its adoption.
Representative New.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'm making this motion to suspend the rules right now because this is literally the only reason we are here today. We are here today to take a vote on the governor's emergency powers and make a decision on whether or not it is time to end those powers. We need to suspend the rules, and then we need to vote to end the emergency powers. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Discussion to the motion to suspend. Representative Nash.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. If you remember the argument I've been making for the last several special sessions, it's this. The legislature should be the policy-making body of the state of Minnesota. In a peacetime emergency, the governor said, I need the time to get the state ready to respond to an emergency. We did that. We all stood here, we agreed. But I will remind you again, as I have for the last several special sessions, which as an aside, they're not that special anymore. But we are the policy-making body. We are the voices of the people of the state of Minnesota. There are 201 of us down here that represent people around the state. And as I have said, the example, since we're getting closer to Thanksgiving, oddly, this has been going on a while, think about that Thanksgiving table when you were a kid. You always wanted to be at the adult table. Well, we're not even at the kiddie table. We're like in the garage, where your mom used to put stuff to keep it cool because it was cold at Thanksgiving time. We're not even in the game. We're here to pass some things to continue the governor's executive powers. But for those that have been here during other times of emergency, other times of crisis, and we've had some since I've been here, we can be a part of the decision-making process. We can come in, we can go to rules, we can come back on the floor, we can go back to rules, we can move bills, we can declare emergencies, we can suspend the rules here on the floor, and we can make things happen. Only if you agree to first put up votes to suspend the rules, because heretofore I don't really think that's been all that interesting for you. So let's suspend the rules and then have a full-throated debate if you'd like to. And then remember that you probably have your election certificate hanging in your office, like a lot of us do. Remember what that says. You have been given the ability to be the voice of the people in the state of Minnesota. I encourage you to exercise that voice. I encourage you to take up the mantle of responsibility and be the people's voice. Come down and do the hard work. That third leg of the stool has been removed. Please, for the love of lutefisk, put it back Take up your responsibility to be a policymaker. Currently, the governor is the only policymaker. The Senate, out of the game. House, out of the game. Let's suspend the rules and not allow the governor's emergency powers to persist, because we've all heard each other talk in committee and here on the floor. We're all smart folks that can come to an agreement. We can hash it out. But to do that, to put yourself back in the driver's seat, to put yourself back into the game, you've got to suspend the rules. And then you have to vote to suspend the governor's powers. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Further discussion? Representative Cantrell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise today to speak against the motion to suspend the rules. Members, there is nothing unconstitutional or unlawful about the governor's peacetime emergency authority, and multiple courts have substantiated as much. It has been and continues to be an essential tool to provide critical support to our families, our cities, and to our businesses during this pandemic. We are at the crossroads of whether we will overcome this pandemic or lose all the progress that we have made, which would result in countless preventable deaths, long-term chronic health effects, and a greater deterioration of our economy and the stability we have all worked so hard to gain, and that we continue to work hard to gain throughout the course of the spread of this disease. Minnesotans, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, frequently propagate erroneous statements, facts, when in reality, they are propagating harmful misinformation. I invite Minnesotans to keep a fact-checking website like Snopes up on your computer during these conversations, during these debates, so that when my colleagues say something like the CDC is considering downgrading this from an epidemic, you can confirm immediately that such a claim is demonstrably untrue. Dr. Birx from the White House Coronavirus Task Force recently met with the leadership at the Minnesota Department of Health to indicate her concern and the White House's concern for Minnesota's rising case numbers. Now, members, as college has started, as students return to campuses, and as teachers and our kids return to the classroom, it is absolutely critical that we ensure that we have every measure in place to protect their health, their safety, and their well-being. We must follow the data and the science. We cannot afford to make a misstep in any capacity regarding our response to this pandemic. I am disappointed that the governor's peacetime emergency has been so heavily politicized and mischaracterized as a usurpation of power, when in reality, as I have said before, the federal government declared a national emergency that is still in effect. In every state, Democratic and Republican, except for Wisconsin, has an active peacetime emergency of some type right now. So why then, members, do some of my colleagues continue to insist month after month that the governor's peacetime emergency is an outlier in terms of statewide responses to this pandemic? The peacetime emergency is a vital tool for our continued navigation through this crisis. If we choose to end the peacetime emergency today, it doesn't mean that the pandemic is over, or that we'll be able to return to life as we knew it before the pandemic, although I know we all want to. No, to end the peacetime emergency today would eliminate this constitutionally and legally sound tool to organize and coordinate our ongoing pandemic response in Minnesota, resulting in prolonged economic harm, causing even more of our beloved small businesses to close permanently. To end the peacetime emergency today, members, would mean that many more Minnesotans would lose family members and friends to this disease. It would mean sacrificing the hard work of Minnesotans since the beginning of this pandemic. And I feel for the discomfort and the anguish that our fellow Minnesotans have experienced over these past several months. Let's continue to work to overcome this pandemic together. Let us not exacerbate the pain that so many people have experienced by undermining the work that continues to need to be done in order to help us work towards returning to a semblance of normalcy. Madam Speaker and members, the governor's peacetime emergency continues to be absolutely vital to ensure that we do not head back to what things were like in March or April, and that we make sure that as time goes on, Minnesotans are safe and their health and well-being is secured. That is our responsibility as a state. That is our responsibility as a legislature. And members, in continuing the governor's peacetime emergency, we are upholding that responsibility. Please vote against this motion to suspend the rules. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As we know, today is September 11th, 2020. And we think back, those of us who were the unfortunate ones who had to live through September 11th, 2001. We remember that the terrorists hijacked airplanes and struck fear into our hearts. And it was on that tragic day, thousands lost their lives and millions more suffered loss. Some listening to me today who are living through events in 2020 weren't alive 19 years ago. For those that weren't alive, and for those of us that were alive, we remember that there was no ambiguity between what was right and wrong. There was no ambiguity between what was good and what was evil. We had clarity because we had strong and effective leadership. We remember then President Bush working effectively to bring us together. Because in unity, there is strength. He brought America together so that we could be strong to fight against evil. Unfortunately, today, there is a lack of clarity. And where there is a lack of clarity, it is lack of leadership. There is the inability to clarify clear, objective benchmarks when we can return to normal. It's by design that Governor Walz has not had clarity. When can we return to our constitutionally required separation of powers? When can the emergency power be rolled back? What are the thresholds that we're waiting for? There is none. A lack of clarity is a clear definition of lack of leadership. Minnesotans have lost trust in Governor Walz's ability to lead. They have lost trust in the Democrat House majority's ability to lead. 19 years ago, there were international terrorists that struck fear into our hearts. Today, in 2020, there are domestic terrorists that are striking fear into our hearts. 19 years ago, we saw the smoke rise from the international terrorists. In 2020, we saw the smoke rise from Minneapolis burning from the domestic terrorists, while Governor Walz did nothing, eroding the confidence that Minnesotans have in his ability to lead. Back then, 19 years ago, we saw international terrorists knock down the buildings. This year, in 2020, We saw our great Minnesota Capitol, this very building that I'm speaking in, targeted for attack. Governor Walz, with advanced knowledge of the attack, as was reported, could have stopped the attack and did nothing. He allowed the attack to happen. And the statue was toppled. And our great Minnesota Capitol was criminally vandalized. What's been the aftermath? Nothing. Lack of leadership, Madam Speaker. In the months and years after the 9/11 tragedy 19 years ago, as we heard on this floor, there was unity. It didn't matter if you were Democrat or Republican, because, again, of strong, effective leadership. In our day, in the weeks and months after the riots in Minneapolis, we've seen crime skyrocket, shootings skyrocket, calls to defund the police by Democrats, calls to abolish the police by Democrats. In fact, Madam Speaker, I didn't say it earlier special sessions, but I'll say it now. We saw the Democrat House Majority Leader release false information about one of my constituents. The Otsego truck driver, Madam Speaker, that the Majority Leader called a racist, out to murder, and he wasn't. Completely false, and we've not heard anything. That was my constituent, hardworking member of my community. Unlike 19 years ago, where we had leadership trying to bring unity and then strength, the Democrats today are engineering seeds of division. They don't want us to be unified and strong. They don't want to have the clarity of right and wrong, good and evil. It's completely subjective and much ambiguity. Madam Speaker, this is the reason why we need to vote in favor of suspending the rules so we can end the peacetime emergency, because Minnesotans do not trust Democrats for their safety and security. They do not trust Governor Walz to keep them safe and secure. They do not trust Democrats to keep them safe and secure. The inability to call evil evil. Madam Speaker, members, please vote green. Thank you.
Representative Liebling.
Madam Speaker and members, I rise today to oppose the motion to suspend the rules. And I have to say, after listening to the speech I just heard, I'm having a little trouble composing myself. I have sat listening in previous special sessions, hour upon hour, to outrageous statements by Republican members of this body. Outrageous statements. I thought maybe when I heard Representative Nash rise and heard his relatively mild-mannered appeal to members to vote for the motion, that we would be on different footing today, because a lot has happened recently. And I think it is much harder for members to argue today, given the circumstances that we're in. It's much harder for members to make the usual arguments that they've made in the past, that there's no emergency, that the virus is a hoax, and so on, so on. So I thought perhaps we could have a shorter debate today, and one that was going to be on the ground that Representative Nash had raised. But no. What we've had instead is a vile speech that was not even on the topic that is before us today. So I'm going to be a little bit less restrained than I normally am too. And I'm going to just say this. A big reason that this legislature, at least the GOP members of this legislature, have not had more input, although I think the governor's been open to people's input, but it is very clear that the Republican Party is not leading and is incapable of leading in this situation. Now, this is not because we don't have some members who are very smart, who are very well-meaning. I could name some of them in this body. There are many good members in this body on both sides of the aisle. But the Republican Party as a whole is now the party of chaos. Chaos. And it is so ironic to hear Representative Lucero talking about lack of clarity and lack of leadership, because that is exactly what we're getting from President Trump and why our country is in the dire condition that it's in with regard to the coronavirus, and why our governor has had to act in the way that he has, not to mention, as Representative Cantrell pointed out, governors of every other state, because we have a lack of leadership coming from the top. And now recently we learned that not only have we seen this chaos and flip-flopping and lack of leadership from the top, we also found out that President Trump knew how dangerous this virus was early on, very early on. He's on tape telling a reporter that he knew that this was more dangerous than the flu, that he knew that this was easily transmissible through the air. And yet, through months and months and months, we heard him say that it was going to go away, tell people that it was a hoax. And by doing this, he has put Americans' lives at risk, and we are now around 200,000 Americans who have died unnecessarily from this virus. And that doesn't even talk about the sickness and the potential long-term impacts of this virus on people's lives and the impact of our economy. So it is just utterly ironic to me to hear Representative Lucero make this argument about lack of clarity and lack of leadership. Members, that is exactly describing the leadership or lack thereof of President Trump. So, I think it is very interesting. I don't know if I want to say ironic, but here we are on 9/11. And yes, the members have made very moving statements about what happened on that terrible day, and also statements that make us very wistful about how we could be pulling together, how we could be together facing a common enemy. It is certainly easier to be unified when you have a common enemy. I think that's something that's well known about human beings. But members, we do have a common enemy now, and it is a virus. It is a virus that doesn't care what party you belong to. It doesn't care whether you consider yourself a conservative or a liberal or a progressive or what you are. We are all human beings, and we have a common enemy, which is a novel virus that we still don't fully understand, that we know can kill some people, that we know can impact the health of other people for years, perhaps, because it has very serious effects for some people. It can hurt their hearts, it can hurt their brains, other organs. And any medical provider who is working with people with this virus will tell you that they still do not feel like they are completely in control. Thank goodness we do have better treatment. They are learning to manage the people who are very sick, but we're still in a really difficult position. So unfortunately, we are not out of the woods. I think when we get back into regular session, there will certainly be some discussions about what exactly we need to be doing. It is clear that the statute that we are under, the Chapter 12 that gives the governor his emergency powers, is not specifically tailored for this kind of a situation. And I would argue that we should look at the statute and see what kinds of powers are needed in this situation and perhaps what kinds are not. But I believe the governor has used his power under Chapter 12 very responsibly. And when you look at the statute itself and you look at the language of the statute, there is no question that it applies. The courts have now said there is an active nature applies, that this pandemic fits right under the statute, and it threatens life and property, and local government resources are inadequate to handle the situation. So the standard is clearly met. Moreover, unfortunately, Minnesota is not in a really good spot right now. We're in a place where we need to be very, very vigilant. And Representative Cantrell mentioned that Dr. Birx was here, and she gave us some information. And it's very interesting that the Trump administration seems to be really talking out of both sides of its mouth. Because Dr. Birx, who was sent here, who came here from the White House, who's one of the president's advisors, is telling us that Minnesota is in a precarious situation. And the recommendations they are making are in some cases even more stringent than the ones that are already in place, that the governor has put in place. So this is not a time to remove the emergency powers. This is a time to speak with one voice and stop lying to Minnesotans, whoever is still lying and saying that this virus is a hoax. It is not a hoax. It is killing people, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. It is making people ill. And unless we address this with one voice, unless we can come together and say to all Minnesotans to have one message that says, wear your mask in public, keep your social distance, wash your hands, unless we can give this message clearly with one voice, we make this emergency go on and on and on. So this is not the time to remove the emergency powers. I also do want to point out, I was watching on the, of course I'm at home in Rochester as I speak to you, but I was watching on my computer, watching the floor, and I noticed that there is a Republican member on the floor who is flouting the guidelines, or was, by wearing her mask underneath her nose and maybe even under her mouth. This, again, is giving the wrong message to Minnesotans. This is saying that this is not a real thing. This is putting people's lives at risk. This is irresponsible. It's really hard when you have bad leadership from the top, when you have a president, the head of your party, who tells you that this is a hoax, even though we now know that was a lie. But we now know it's not a hoax. And please, members, this shouldn't be about politics. This should be coming together as we did after 9/11 to face a common enemy and win. And that common enemy is the virus. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Franson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I tell you what, members, I am so mad. I am so angry. I can't even begin to believe how angry I am. Last night I couldn't even sleep. I was texting people, I'm so mad. I was so mad at what is happening. And then I'll tell you why. It's because these kids, our children, including mine, have to wear this stupid mask while they're at school. They can't even talk to their friends. They can't even sit next to each other on the school bus. They are being introduced into a new dystopian lifestyle, and they're told to accept it. I tried to get my kid out of band. Do you know that the kids, if they are in band, they have to wear a special face mask for their instrument, and then at the end, they have to wear a face mask for the instrument so that the aerosols don't spray out. And apparently they're going to come up with one for the spit valve. I think it's disgusting. I think it's wrong. I think what we are doing to children's mental health is absolutely ridiculous. And yes, Representative Liebling was talking about somebody that had their mask under here and here. That was me, and I am okay with that because I like to breathe oxygen. I don't like to breathe my sweaty breath all day long. And as a matter of fact, coercion is not consent. I am actually coerced members and public to wear this mask on the House floor today if I want to do the job to represent the people that I was sent here to talk to and to represent. Unfreaking believable. Unbelievable. Did you know that the ruling class has used fear for ages to control the people? They use fear as a form and as a means of social control. Governor Walz does it really well. This entire time, he has been feeding people fear, and some people are not strong enough to realize that he is gaslighting you and psychologically abusing you. March 16th, the governor announced the state will temporarily close bars and restaurants, where he says, I don't see a situation where there wouldn't be an extension of these dates. We are not going to stop this from spreading, but we can stop how fast it spreads, he says. This is our new normal, the governor says that same day at an evening news conference, just one day after he ordered public schools across Minnesota to close by Wednesday. I think it would be a forecast to the press that this is more likely a rhythm we may get into. On March 26th, he added some more fear porn. Without action, he said, 74,000 Minnesotans could be killed by this. We're not even near that number. What our objective is now is to move the infection rate out, slow it down, and buy time. Adding, the place we cannot go to is when someone cannot get that ICU care. We peaked March 30th. Oh, and then, if you violate the order in Minnesota, comes the penalties of a misdemeanor, punishable up to 90 days in jail or up to $1,000 in fine. We don't want them to be arrested, he said, first and foremost. We want to educate people. This requires voluntary social compliance for the large part. But if you step out of line and you don't kiss the ring, there was a fine for you. And on March 27th, that's when he introduced the Tattletale hotline, so all the Karens can call it and report a stay-at-home violation. Do not call 911, it says. Instead, you can call 651-793-3746 or email sahviolation@state.mn.us. How disgusting is that? That's gross. March 28th, another headline. Oh, forecast for Minnesota predicts COVID-19 surge, but fewer deaths in summer. Some more fear. That's when people started saying, oh my gosh, you gotta stay away from people. Stay 6 feet away, you could kill someone. They really believe that. People actually believe that. Yeah. He goes on the road. And the Minnesota researchers provided the first detailed look at the predictive modeling that influenced Governor Walz's stay-at-home strategy. The good news is the strategy could reduce predicted COVID-19 deaths by up to 1/3, according to the modeling, and even more if it buys the necessary time for researchers to come up with vaccines or drugs. But the death toll could still be steep. Ooh, that sounds scary. Where are we today, people? And the modeling still predicts a point this spring or summer when an overwhelming 2 million Minnesotans are infected all at once. Where are we today? Certainly nowhere near 2 million, not even close. I mean, it's not even negligible to 2 million people. Oh gosh, and Stephen Gildemeister said, my instinct was that can't be right. That is so incredibly high, it can't be possible. Putting fear into the hearts of people so that they can control you. That's what government is doing right now. Let's see here. Just unbelievable. Oh gosh, then there was an estimate. Then there was another update. I don't know what the date was on that. Maybe it was the same March 28th. But Yeah, 50 to 55,000 deaths. March 31st, Minnesota prepares to create 3,300 additional hospital beds for the COVID-19 surge. Oh gosh. April 1st, CARE 11. With Minnesota up to 17 COVID-19 deaths, Wall urges stay-at-home compliance. Minnesota has done a pretty good job, he says, but I'm going to be the first to tell you. We need to continue to do better, he says. More fear. April 3rd, Governor Walz hints that Minnesota's stay-at-home order could extend through the end of April. We're using the federal standards, but trying to adapt, he says. We're trying to figure out the best science, what's the best health advice to keep people safe, but what is the most sustainable? This is going to be really hard. Well, maybe if you really want to keep people safe and healthy, maybe you should put down the Big Macs. Maybe you should stop eating processed food. Maybe you should exercise. Maybe you should get some vitamin D, because that's going to keep you healthy. Oh, we're trying to look to be thoughtful with the data and modify away, Governor Walz added, saying a lot of this depends on how well Minnesotans adhere to it without us telling them to do so, so they're not jeopardizing the gains that we are making. Oof, gosh, that really freaked out the tattletales. They were really calling in then. April 8th, Pioneer Press. Here's why Walz extended the stay-at-home order to May 4th, and what does it get us? He says, we cannot rest easy. Things can explode overnight. We're still waiting for that explosion. But it's fear. It's fear. And if you don't buy the fear, that's where the penalties come in. That's where the fines come in. That's where the jail time comes in. April 10th. Oh, Minnesota officials project 22,000 COVID-19 deaths. July 13th, hospitalization peak. Didn't happen. Yep, did not happen. Oh, and May 19th, my favorite fear porn here. State finalizes the purchase of former Bix produce warehouse to serve as a temporary morgue. That was to scare you. I've been saying that since he bought it. That was simply to scare you. Taxpayers are so mad, they want that $6 million back. They want $6.9 million, whatever it's costing to renovate that to a morgue that's never going to be used. As a matter of fact, I think it should be for sale. Representative Matt Dean, former Representative Matt Dean, did a nice little YouTube, Facebook Live. He was at the site. He put up a little for sale sign, put Tim's name on there, and the number to the Governor Walz's office. It should be for sale. There are actually people that have had their buildings burnt down in the city of Minneapolis that have no idea how they're going to rebuild. Maybe the state, if they truly cared about people, would sell that morgue and help assist some of those business owners through no fault of their own, had their businesses burnt down by rioters. Wonderful. Speaking of the whole Minneapolis stuff, did you know that suicides among U.S. kids and young adults are soaring? That was today in Bloomberg. In Minnesota, more people have died from accidents than COVID deaths. No talk about that. You'd think the only thing that was killing people is COVID. Nope. Accidents and suicides. The actual survival rate of COVID, 99.92%. 99.92% COVID death, which means, and that's that COVID death is, there are more deaths aged 90 plus than 70 and under. 99.92%. That's the survival rate outside long-term care. As a matter of fact, you have a greater chance in this state of being called a racist or a white supremacist by the majority leader. As a matter of fact, there are probably more Trump supporters in this state that Representative Ryan Winkler now calls killers. There are more Trump supporters in this state than COVID deaths. But apparently, they are the killers. You have a greater chance of going into Minneapolis and being murdered, being raped, your car looted, or whatever, what is it called? Carjacking. Yes, you have a greater chance of your car being jacked in Minneapolis than you do in my age dying of COVID. Minneapolis is a crisis. 2 hours ago, there was a robbery of a business at gunpoint at a gas station. That happened at 60-something Portland Avenue. That was 2 hours ago. Another 2 hours ago, 39th and Bryant Avenue South, there was a black Nissan that pulled up and occupants sprayed a jogger in the face with an unknown liquid. Actually, these incidences are happening a lot faster than the COVID deaths in Minnesota. There is no emergency, people. The emergency that is happening here is with our mental health, with these dystopian rules that we're supposed to follow. But some of the questions the media isn't even asking about too. According to an advisory.com article, many coronavirus tests have fairly high cycle thresholds, with most set at 40 and some at 37, which means a number of patients who aren't carrying enough of the COVID are still testing positive, even though they may not be contagious. We have no idea what Minnesota's threshold is. Media needs to do their job and find those questions out. We also have a greater chance of probably the new incoming freshman, John Thompson, throwing a fit in front of people or threatening them. That's I think that's more dangerous to have him in this body than COVID, actually. There is no emergency. Government is using this to control us. And when we don't bend the knee and we don't kiss the ring, that's when he chooses to punish us. It's time to end the peacetime emergency and allow Minnesotans to do what we do best without being forced by governor. Thank you.
Members, I'm going to remind you that the subject before the House is the motion to suspend the rules to take up a declaration ending the peacetime emergency, and that our customs and usage suggest that we avoid personalities, particularly the executive of the state, and individuals, and debate the issue itself. Representative Mason. Representative Mason, if you are on the line, you need to press *6 because we cannot unmute you. Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Anger serves no purpose. I am not mad. I'm actually sad. As I reflect on the tragedies from 9/11, I remember where I was on that day. I was a professor at Cornell University in New York. I was teaching a course when students started shouting about the World Trade Center being on fire. I rushed my class to the student lounge so we could watch the news. Everyone was in shock. Students started to receive cell phone calls from parents and siblings. Students were crying. Some were talking to their loved one for the last time. All I could do was to try to comfort them, to show my empathy. As a result of that tragedy, our country and the entire world seemed united. Today, I do not feel that unity. I am concerned about our world, our country, and our people. There are so many threats in our lives. We should not be threats to each other, to other humans. A major threat to our state and country is our convictions. Individuals relying on their convictions' beliefs rather than reason and science. Relying on political messaging rather than facts is a substantial threat to our state. The fear of other humans being stoked by our president and those that follow him could destroy our democracy, destroy people's trust in government. The lack of competent leadership by our president and his Republican administration to conquer the virus has resulted in needless deaths. Historically, it is fear and oppression that destroy people and countries. We just cannot allow that to happen here, not in our state and not in our country. Our president knew how deadly the virus was in January. He knew it was more deadly than the flu, knew that it was spread through the air. He said privately that it was, quote, deadly stuff. Then he failed to share this vital
Madam
information
Speaker,
with the public.
What is the business before the body right now?
He
Representative
downplayed the virus.
Schultz has the floor.
And what is the business before the body?
He downplayed the virus. He compared the virus to the flu, said it was under control and it would soon disappear. At the end of February, he called it a hoax. And many followed his lead, believed these convictions, repeated false information, failed to listen to reason and science. This lack of competent leadership of our president and the failure of his Republican team to intervene to protect our people delayed the containment of the virus, delayed surveillance, delayed the production of testing and PPE, and most tragically, led to thousands of deaths that could have been prevented. Close to 200,000 individuals have died from COVID, and
Madam
more
Speaker, point of order.
predicted to succumb to the virus by January. These are facts, not convictions or myths. Governor Walz has led our state through this crisis, initiating life-saving policies that our president failed to do. He retains emergency powers because we continue to be in an emergency as a result
Madam
of inaction
Speaker,
by our
point of
Republican
order.
president.
Representative
There has not
Quam.
been a strong national strategy for responding to COVID-19.
Representative Schultz, Representative Quam has raised a point of order. Representative Quam.
Madam Speaker, what is the matter before us? I'm trying to understand what we're actually debating here. I thought we were the Minnesota House of Representatives, and we were debating a topic of the state of Minnesota.
Representative Quam, the matter before the body is whether there should be a peacetime emergency. Representative Schultz is speaking to the issue of whether there should be a peacetime emergency.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
As long as people steer clear of motives and stick to facts of decisions that people have made to discuss the emergency, that is fine. Representative Schultz, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There has not been a strong national strategy for responding to COVID-19, but rather 50 individual state strategies that encourage competition rather than collaboration. If members want to help end COVID-19, they should push the federal administration to show the same kind of leadership we have seen by our governor in Minnesota by creating real federal strategy for testing and PPE distribution. Minnesota is now on the precipice of exponential community spread of the virus as daily positivity rates increase. As we prepare to move indoors, it will likely get worse. MDH has recently reported the largest one-day increase in positive cases since the pandemic began. Over the past week, Minnesota has averaged 751 positive cases reported per day, an increase of 13% from the average 2 weeks earlier. National experts including Dr. Deborah Birx from the White House Task Force, share the concern that we are not out of the woods. They've encouraged us to buckle down in our efforts to keep each other safe from the virus. And we cannot rely on the legislature to act quickly. Republicans can't even help us pass a bonding bill. Senate Republicans close special session rather than accomplishing the important tasks of governing. If members are serious about co-governing with the administration through this crisis, they should be willing to pass bills that help our state fight COVID-19, like increasing funding for testing, contact tracing, local public health agencies, as well as mandates to wear masks to protect our loved ones. Instead, my Republican colleagues spend their time fighting with Governor Walz and his administration rather than fighting the virus. Their failure to confirm commissioners, the very people we need to help lead us through this crisis, is not reasonable. We are so fortunate to have Governor Walz, who uses reason and science to steer us through this pandemic, to protect our loved ones, to activate our state resources for testing and vaccination research. I know the people of Minnesota will not be persuaded by Republicans' message of hate and fear of others, to fear those who rise
Madam
to
Speaker,
express
point of
their
order.
rightful outrage. We need
Representative
to be a community.
Davids,
We need
Representative
to be
Schultz.
again.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. She is out of order, according to Masons, questioning Republicans' intentions, saying that they are hating. She is also violating the House rules, referring to actions of the state Senate. I would implore Representative Schultz to keep confined to the issue at hand. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Davids, you have raised a point of order about motives, and I find your point of order well taken. Nobody raised a point of order on motives during Representative Lucero's speech, but members, let's all confine our debate to the topic before the body and not the motives of one another's political parties. It's an unusual situation to be here during a campaign season, but let's stick to the topic. Representative Davids.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, parliamentary inquiry.
State your parliamentary inquiry.
Madam Speaker, could you please instruct members how to enter the debate if they are wish to do so remotely, since they can unmute themselves today and they normally could not do so?
Representative Winkler, members, the way to be recognized would be, because I can't tell who's talking, if you just unmute yourself and start talking, I don't know who to recognize, is to let your leadership know, and I will call on you if you have a point of order to interrupt someone's speech. Representative Schultz, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We need to be a community. We need to be united again. We need our community to use reason and to have empathy, like the very empathy we had on 9/11, by caring for others' well-being. Reason and empathy will be our savior, but hate and fear our demise. Thank you.
Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, very interesting discussion today. We're here today to debate the unconstitutional legislative veto that's written into Chapter 12 of Minnesota statutes. I listened intently to Representative Cantrell and Representative Liebling suggest that our arguments about the unconstitutionality of these statutes and of the governor's subsequent actions coming out of them are unconstitutional, because they are. Members, there was a court case held in Ramsey County Court. It was recently dismissed, and it has been recently appealed to the Minnesota Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court is going to get a look at the constitutionality or unconstitutionality, both of Chapter 12, Section 12.31, and of the governor's actions. Members, for Minnesotans is what we need to be looking at here. Today, vote as we entertain this unconstitutional legislative veto that is before us. Members, the legislature is deciding whether or not to veto the governor's peacetime emergency. That's what we're doing today. Are we going to let them keep going and writing more laws, complete and filled with criminal and civil outcomes? Are we going to let him continue to fine businesses? The Attorney General said he'll bring $25,000 fines to a business owner that doesn't have their mask on in their business. The governor has said in his executive order, you get 90 days in jail if you're a business owner in Minnesota and you don't wear a mask. It's time, members, to vote for Minnesotans and not the raw, unbridled, and unconstitutional power of the dictator in the other building, in the other part of this building. Minnesotans deserve to be represented. Every one of us has run for election or re-election to come here to be a member of the Minnesota House of Representatives. There's 134 of us in this body. We all represent 1/134th of the state of Minnesota. Members, you went to your constituents telling them you were going to go and fight for them to represent their interests here. And we have members in this body that have refused repeatedly. They've refused in April, in May, in June, in July, and again in August to take back the authority that the legislature has to write the rules and regulations of this state and take them away from the governor. Members, that's cowardly behavior. And that is not being honest to the constituents that sent us here. We are hearing, members, directly from our constituents daily. I heard from one again in email yesterday. I heard from two more again today. They feel a sense of loss. Our business owners are losing their businesses. The small businesses in Minnesota, the mom and pop businesses on Main Street are getting smothered by the picking winners and losers that this dictator has placed through these executive orders that is squashing them and making big businesses rich. They feel a sense of helplessness. The out-of-control actions of this chief executive. What can we do, they say. What can we do? You guys have to do something. I hear it again and again and again. Their freedoms are being stripped. They're being told by one monarch in the state of Minnesota that this is how you have to live your lives. This is what you can wear. This is what you can't wear. This is how you can worship. This is how you can't worship. This is how you can send your kids to school. This is how you can't send your kids to school. And members, We have laws for each and every single one of those. As a matter of fact, members, passed by a previous legislature, Section 609.735 says wearing of masks in public in Minnesota is against the law and punishable by law. So, we have a monarch who issues a dictate that is not constitutional, does not follow the laws of this state, that says that law is no longer any good. This is the law we're putting forward. This is the law that he is putting forward, enforcing upon the people of Minnesota. We have laws that protect the religious liberty of people. We have constitutional law. Members, do I have to remind you, the Constitution, Representative Cantrell, is the highest law of the land. The very highest law of the land. We have laws that were written by previous legislatures and signed by previous governors requiring schools, public schools in Minnesota, to have a certain number of education days for kids in school, that the property taxes and other taxes are extracted from the people to pay for. And we have laws that say that those schools have to educate kids in those schools, but then we have an edict from the monarch that arrives out of the governor's office that says, no, you can only be in school if these situations exist. Basically, wiping out the laws that this legislature and past governors have written into statute again and again and again. In the constitutional violations, Representative Liebling and Representative Cantrell, I urge you to read Article 3, Section 1 of the Minnesota Constitution. It's called the separation of powers. And it says, members, Madam Speaker, it says that one branch of government shall not give or allow any of its powers to be usurped by another branch of government. We have, members, a chief executive right now who has written, I don't know how many edicts, 80 or 90 edicts now. Maybe it's close to 100, where he is forcing and telling the people of Minnesota how to live their lives, how not to live their lives, how to follow the existing law or not. But we have those edicts included in there, as I mentioned earlier, are criminal penalties. A misdemeanor, $1,000 fine, 90 days in jail if you don't follow that Governor Walz edict. That's what his edicts say. He's using the fear and coercion, the fear porn that Representative Franson mentioned so eloquently. So we have in law a bunch of laws that are being run over by this dictator, and the people of Minnesota are in despair. Their loss of freedom, their kids can't go to school in situations, only if the dictator says they can. Well, members, Representative Liebling and others, let's look at the science. I mean, kids have virtually no chance of dying from this disease. As a matter of fact, they have a better chance of dying from getting run over by the school bus, or they have a better chance of dying from the flu. than they do from this disease. So why are we creating all this abnormal activity which is in conflict with our state law in order to create yet more fear? Madam Speaker, I wonder if Representative Tabke would yield for a question.
Representative Tabke, would you yield for a question? Either he won't yield or he can't unmute himself. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Maybe we'll try again later. Would Representative Hewitt yield for a question?
He will yield. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Hewitt, how are you going to vote on this unconstitutional legislative veto before us today? Tell us why.
Representative Winkler, for what purpose do you rise?
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
State your point of order.
It's not permissible to ask a member how they intend to vote. It is only permissible to discuss the merits of the issue before the body today. Representative Drazkowski, after we had a point of order upheld by the Speaker with respect to Representative Schultz's speech, she advised the body to stick to the matter before us, to avoid personalities. And Representative Drazkowski, we've seen you repeatedly go past that, and you're taking it one step too far. We need to focus on the actual issue in front of us, and it's not permissible for you to ask anyone else how they intend to vote.
Point of order is well taken. You may ask him to yield to a question. You may not ask him how he intends to vote.
Madam Speaker, would you cite the place either in Mason's or in our rules or in custom and usage that says that?
It's the long-standing custom and usage of the Minnesota House that we don't allow that question. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I guess I don't remember that custom and usage. I've been here 13 years. You've been here, Madam Speaker, longer than me. I trust that maybe it happened in the 14th year before I got here. I'm not sure. But if Representative Hewitt would continue to yield.
He will yield. Representative Drazkowski.
Representative Hewitt, can you tell us, are you in favor or opposed to this motion to enact this unconstitutional legislative veto that's before us here today?
Representative Hewitt.
Madam Speaker, point of order.
State your point of order.
Mason's 114, number 5, a question as to what course a member proposes to follow is not in order.
Representative Becker-Finn, I think Representative Drazkowski was trying really hard to ask a question about why Representative Hewitt would choose one course or another rather than which course he would choose, but maybe I'm giving him too much credit. Representative Drazkowski, please restate your question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would suggest that this course of discussion fits perfectly within custom and usage in all 13 years that I've been here. But I will do that as you suggest, Madam Speaker, and that is, Representative Hewitt, are you in favor of this unconstitutional legislative veto or opposed to it? And if so, tell us what your thoughts are.
Representative Hewitt.
Madam Speaker, Representative Drazkowski, sorry about that. Sure, I have concerns about this, but right now I'm very firm where I stand on this. I have not been told by anyone legal on my side or your side that there is a constitutional. I've saw it in your letters and things like that, but I would like the law to determine that, not you or I. I'm sorry, Representative Drazkowski, if you have a law degree that knows that this is unconstitutional, I apologize for that, but right now I have not gotten documents from staff or anybody saying that this is unconstitutional other than from you or many of supporters. And so I have a big problem with calling it unconstitutional. The other problem I have here is that these orders are in place to protect us. And I'm going to revert back to what I talked about earlier on the floor. Right now in the state of Minnesota, we do not have enough EMTs to staff your district other than other districts around the state. One of these orders the governor has put in place is so important, so when 911 is called, that people come in the middle of the night to your house or anyone's house, because we don't have the staff. The governor was able to put in his orders, and you knew this from last summer, my trips, I've talked to you about this, that we don't have the staff, but he put it in there to recall retirees. We have now EMTs that retired that are able to come back, drive the trucks. We have nurses that are working in ERs. This is a crisis that's going on throughout the state. In these orders, that's covered, and there's many other orders that are tied to this. Now, I really, really wish that we could reach across the aisle, do what's right, and do what we have to do to just get rid of this, the COVID. That's what we have to do together, Representative Drozdowski. And that's what the people in my district have asked me. When are we going to work together to move this forward so we can end this? Because realistically, saying it's over or saying that it's all done is not right. It's not. We all know it. We have hospital beds that are still filling. The numbers. And it's not always about the people that died or who's in the morgue and who's not. It's about what this has done to people's lives. You're right, some businesses have hurt, but it's people that don't trust going out to businesses right now. They don't want to go there because they're afraid of getting sick. They are getting sick. We alone had many basketball players who went to a camp in Rosemount this year, out of state, came back with COVID. Those kids are still suffering 9 weeks later from respiratory problems, from heart problems. We don't know what this is doing. We need to stop the rhetoric and work together. That's what my people want. That's what they've told me. So Representative Drozdowski, I welcome you to work with us. Work with everybody. Let's get this done so we can move on to doing better things for the state. Thank you.
Representative Drozdowski.
Thank you, Representative Hewitt. Well, Representative Hewitt, we can't work together because the governor is dictating policy in the state of Minnesota. Have you told your constituents that? That's what they need to understand, Representative Hewitt. You are abdicating your responsibility and allowing the governor to write the laws on your behalf. When you voted no in April and May and June and July and August, you voted to give the governor, the chief executive of this state, your authority that's in your election certificate. You gave it to him. You can't work with me to outline the laws related to COVID-19 in this state because he is dictating it. He holds all the cards, and you don't want to take them back and play the card game on behalf of your constituents. That's the problem, Representative Hewitt. It's your job to represent your constituents here. And your last votes have demonstrated you're refusing to do it because you're afraid of the politics within your party.
Point of order, Madam Speaker. Personalities in the debate. Representative Drozdowski has repeatedly invoked them since his angry response to Representative Hewitt.
Members, I know there's a lot of high emotion on this topic. Let's try to stick to talking about the facts that in favor of our arguments for or against our votes. Representative Drozdowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, members, I think I have made my point. We have abdicated our responsibilities to the governor. At least some of us have. I have not, and a good number of other members here have not. I think all Republicans here have voted to keep our responsibility and to do our work here as legislators in this body. The same can't be said for Minnesota Democrats in the House of Representatives. They're walking lockstep with their dictator-in-chief, enabling him and giving him their authority that they told Minnesotans in their district they wanted to bring here to represent them. And that's not what's going on. We are in our fourth special session here in the state of Minnesota. Legislative Reference Library tells us, Madam Speaker, this is the first time in the state's history that we have had 4 special sessions in 1 year. And Madam Speaker, they're not very special. I heard members saying, oh, do we have session tomorrow? Oh, well, here we are again. And we're going to rack up another $30,000 or $50,000 of the taxpayers' money here to discuss one thing, an unconstitutional legislative veto that's written into statutes that we are placed in a position to exercise in order to undo the other unconstitutional act, and that is the creation of pure law by the governor of this state as he is putting it out to the people of Minnesota and forcing them and creating the fear porn that was talked about earlier. Minnesota Democrats, Madam Speaker, are purveyors of fear porn, and they are enabling this governor to continue to scare them and continue to force them how to live their lives. It's time, Madam Speaker, for us to flatten the fear, to look at science and the reality that's going on the ground. Madam Speaker, since the mask mandate, the unconstitutional mask mandate that's directly in violation with section 609.735 of our state statutes, and of course Article 3, Section 1 of the Constitution, since that edict came down on July 28th, there's been no change, virtually no change in the numbers of people in ICU units, the numbers of deaths, or any of the other measurements that goes on related to COVID-19. Madam Speaker, if we look at science, the governor's unconstitutional edict around masks has done nothing to protect Minnesotans. All it has is directed them on how to live their lives, placed them in uncomfortable positions, forced their kids to wear masks, taken away oxygen and their ability to breathe and grow and live freely. That's what we have here. We've got a governor out of control. Members, take back your authority. Representative Hewitt, Representative Tabke, Representative Wozlowick, Representative Christensen, stop giving your election certificate to the chief executive of this state. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Mason.
Madam Speaker, members, we operate on the premise that we all have election certificates and that we do our best to represent our districts and the state of Minnesota. But I am not seeing that this year. This was supposed to be the year we passed a bonding bill. Here it is, September, and we finished our regular session, and now we're into another special session, and we have not passed the bonding bill. People, communities all over Minnesota are waiting for us to pass the bonding bill, whether it's for housing, water facilities, transportation, and on and on. Interest rates are incredibly low, so what better time to pass the bill? Yet the members who are putting this or supporting this current resolution are putting off passing the bonding bill, one of their major responsibilities. And yet they want to take on oversight of the new and changing pandemic. Why would I allow the legislature to take oversight of a life and death of others when they can't even accomplish their basic responsibilities? From my perspective, they can't handle it. It is, the Republicans are just sowing distrust and just absolute fear.
Madam Speaker, point of order.
Representative Davids, state
Madam
your
Speaker,
point of order.
What is the issue before us? We're talking about bonding bills. I'm confused here. Are we talking about the governor's situation here? Or are we talking about bonding bills? Could you please clear that up for me?
She did link the two. I thought you were going to go for motive. She was on the edge there, but she's.
Well, Madam Speaker, I'm very concerned.
Davids.
Madam Speaker, I'm very concerned about her questioning motives.
Representative Mason, please continue and steer far clear of people's motives or why they might be doing what they're doing. Thank you. Representative Mason.
Okay. I appreciate that. Most of the people that I know are comfortable with the governor's leadership. Some have even said that he is doing a fantastic job, and that's more than one person. So people are facing a lot of stress, and I think it would be really helpful if all the members of this legislature did more to help relieve the stress than counter and make difficult, well, actually outrageous comments about the governor. He is doing, in most of the people, and I'm talking people in my district and out, they think he is doing a good job. There are many people I know that are not ready to go back to normal yet. They're not ready to go into restaurants. They're not ready to do other things. So I believe we still need to continue with the emergency powers. And so I'm urging everybody to vote no. The other thing I do want to add is in talking to a constituent the other day about issues, she is more upset about the divisiveness and the hate that she is seeing going on. And that is something that we can all do something about. We are the Minnesota legislators. We should be able to work together so that the people in our state have confidence in government and confidence that we are going to be able to solve this problem together. So again, I encourage everybody to vote no on this resolution.
Representative Gruenhagen.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, I agree with you. The passions are running high. I do have a supporter who wished me to share some of their perspective on this, and I've toned it down, and I want to end on a unifying comments because, you know, I've talked to Democrats and Republicans and independents, and they do want us to come together on this, okay? And I really believe that the majority, if not all of us on both sides of the aisle, want to come together on this and work for the best of the citizens of the state of Minnesota. And, but I did promise to share this person's perspective. Again, I've toned it down some, okay? But members, appreciate your indulgence. You know, my supporter is very concerned about the protesting, rioting, vandalizing, and spike in crime that they see not only in Minneapolis, St. Paul, but across our country and many of our major cities that is destroying people's businesses, their lives, and putting many of the citizens of those communities in danger. And then there seems to be at times a reluctance by elected officials to initiate the type of law enforcement behavior to put an end to this. But with that, my constituent goes on and says part of their concern is that they see the governor and sometimes other elected officials attend large funerals, sometimes without masks. They go to large gatherings, and then they put our elderly in danger by transferring COVID infectious patients into nursing homes and assisted living, where we have the most vulnerable people that we need to be protecting, when our hospitals basically sit empty. On top of that, they spend millions, the governor spends millions and millions of tax dollars without the consent of the governed. And again, the refrigerated morgue is referred by my supporter. My supporter thinks that the Walz administration has done more damage than good, okay? Mentally, physically, and economically to the citizens and the businesses of the state of Minnesota with this. Now, regardless of which side of the issue you fall on that, and we've heard both sides today, I'm giving you this particular supporter's perspective. Now, by the way, this supporter would like to see us work together. Democrats, Republicans, and independents for the good of the state. And again, I believe that if not all, the majority of us want that to happen, okay? And we're getting a lot of finger pointing, okay? But my supporters goes on and says, then they see the attack on Labor Day family gatherings, Sturgis's causing spikes in cases, weddings, and restaurants. And yet they see the Walz administration sometimes and liberals at times do little or nothing in terms of the protesters, the rioting, the vandalizing, the looting, and the crime, and connecting that to the spread of the COVID-19. So that, calls into question, and I tone this down, they think the Walz administration has a certain level of hypocrisy, and they're turning a blind eye to many of these illegal activities. So that's basically their perspective. I would like to add this. We were told we're the party of chaos, Republicans are. Well, one of the things that would help is if the DFLers would stop calling for the defunding of police. I know police officers. I did 13 years of jail ministry. I know my sheriffs. They're good people. Are they perfect? No. Were mistakes made at times? Yes. But the overwhelming majority of them want to defend and be with us. When Representative Nash and Representative Hewitt spoke about 9/11, I also was encouraged that we had a bipartisan moment. In fact, I emailed both of them, thanking them for their comments and bringing us into remembrance of that horrible event and the consequence to our country and to the citizens in terms of their death and loss of property and everything else. And I was empathetic. I did what I could in terms of donations to help the people in New York. Okay. And I certainly respect EMT people, police officers, firefighters. In fact, my business partner is a first responder and a firefighter for almost 30 years. And we've worked together for almost 30 years. So I know what they go through. And we certainly need to give them a little bit of room to make a mistake once in a while, and yet call out the egregious behavior or mistakes that are made. And we could talk about that some more. But, so stop calling for the defunding of police. That would help a lot if you and your supporter and some of the supporters would do that. Second thing, I do have to say one word about the defense of President Trump. He initiated a ban on China very early in January or early February. And he was called by Vice President Biden a xenophobe. He was also called by DFL governors and DFL congressmen or elected officials that he was crazy for doing that. They turned their back on medical science. They're the ones that said, go about your life, go in gatherings, ignore what President Trump is doing. So far from being a president that lied, he took early steps that saved thousands of lives. That is simply a fact from my perspective. The other thing I would like to say is that it's time to end the peacetime emergency, okay? To restore the balance of power and focus on addressing the other major issues our state is facing, like keeping our community safe and addressing the dramatic increase in crime we're seeing in our cities. If you want to end this division, and I think, again, most of us or all of us, including the citizens, would like to see it ended, then we need to vote to end this peacetime emergency. It's causing a huge amount of frustration to see the governor making these types of executive orders that affect businesses and people's lives where their elected officials have no voice in it. And again, I supported the governor initially to get the hospitals up to date. But this has dragged on for almost 6 months now. And we really need to think through, why not let's work together with the governor? The governor and I appeared in Henderson about a flood relief bill. And there I said at the time, which I think is still true, we're taking the position to not pass the bonding bill until the governor relinquishes or modifies his emergency powers. And, the governor was there. I said, Governor, I was a school board member for 16 years. I was chief negotiator with certified staff for 6 years. We worked these things out. And, we didn't have a strike. And we always worked things out and worked together. We had some pointed discussions, but in the end, we came together for the good of the community and the children. I see the same thing here. It is time. I want to end the finger pointing, okay? I think the other side of the aisle does, and I think most of us on our side want to. But to do that, you've got to realize the level of frustration that we're experiencing when we're kept in the bleachers at a time of crisis in the state. Even if we would vote to end the powers, okay, which I strongly urge us to do today, you're still in control of the House. We're simply going to have some oversight of the governor. And he even said when we were in Henderson on TV that, well, then I wouldn't have to take the blame for everything that goes wrong when I make an executive order. I'd actually be able to share it with the legislature. And I thought that was a good palm or a good reach out of his hand to say, okay, let's talk about this some. But yet we still find ourselves in that situation. So members, if you want to reduce the division and the finger pointing, okay, which I know I do, and I know our citizens in the state want to, and I know the majority of you if not all of you on the other side of the aisle want to, then vote to end this peacetime emergency. And let's work together with the governor on a bipartisan basis for the good of the people of the state of Minnesota and our businesses and some of the ramifications of some of these decisions. And finally, members, I emailed you the failed experiment of the COVID lockdowns. It was a Wall Street Journal article. And it looks back to April on the medical scientific facts of states that had a hard lockdown versus states that didn't. And according to the medical facts, the states that did not have a hard lockdown had lower infectious rates of COVID-19 compared to the ones that had a hard lockdown. Those are simply the medical facts. Please, not as a Democrat or Republican, but as an elected representative of the people, let's vote to end this. Let's work together. I do think if we end it and work with the governor, that the amount of division and finger pointing that we see will be greatly reduced. And people in the state of Minnesota, regardless of which side of the aisle they're on, will see that as something good for our state. And I think even the governor will appreciate it in the end, if I can reference his Henderson comments. And, we took a picture together over at Henderson that day. We came together because we wanted to do what was right for the citizens of Henderson, who are experiencing a tremendous amount of flooding and business disruption, along with emergency services disruption during 3 or 4 months a year. So with that, members, I would say let's come together. Let's end these emergency peacetime powers. Let's work with the governor for what's best for the state of Minnesota, regardless of party affiliation. God bless you, and I pray that you'll think through what I've said and what others have said, and we'll vote for what's best for Minnesota. Thank you.
Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I want to speak today as a member of this body that has contracted COVID-19 publicly for the first time. It was actually a month to this day that I started feeling my symptoms, and I'm still so grateful for our public health officials for putting out their guidance that I actually stopped myself from coming into session last month at the state office building over at the Capitol and, caring for all of your health and our staff who does so much work for all of us. And, today hearing this discussion, I find it disturbing and belittling from my colleagues that we are, pushing these fear-mongering talks, and it is an insult to many of the families like myself who has been impacted by COVID. And from my perspective, I just want to share a little bit about the situation with my family. Over 20 family members in my household has tested positive for COVID-19. The oldest one was my father, who is 76-year-old, who was hospitalized twice. The youngest one is my 9-month-old niece. And just speaking to you right now, it's a little bit hard and difficult, and so I just wanted to ask you for your patience. I and, my siblings, many of the one who contracted COVID, we are living in uncertainty right now. And this is why it's so important for us to uphold the governor's emergency power so that his team and our public health officials can actually do the work to help out all of the Minnesotans that we have that are being impacted by COVID-19. And to one of the point that one of my colleagues have mentioned that, children or young child are at the least risk of dying. I want to let you know, what my sister heard from her provider, her medical provider, when my niece tested positive. The medical provider said that right now we cannot do anything to help support you other than, you contacting 911 when your daughter starts turning blue. And I don't think that should be, as a parent and as a Minnesotan, that should not be the response that we get from our medical provider, because we just don't know what's going on with this. And I'm so grateful for my colleague, Representative Colleague Her, for sharing her story with me and staff from the Department of Health when we were talking to them about the disparity that we are seeing in our communities of colors and indigenous communities, where she has 2 uncles who has passed away because of COVID-19. One is a grocery store owner who will not be opening his stores anymore. The second one has passed on because his son is an essential worker. He's a bus driver for our transit system. I just want our members of this body to realize the real impact that this is having on our families. Over the last 4 weeks, this has been one of the toughest times for me and my family, where I have younger siblings who wanted so badly to come and visit my parent, my younger brother. He actually called and, had a crying moment with my mom and dad, saying that he may not be there to witness, their last moment with them because he and his wife is expecting their young boy later on this year. And, to hear all of this, and to see the struggle that my parents are and what they're going through right now, because, not only do we not know much about COVID, they have a language barrier. They cannot speak English. They cannot communicate with our medical providers out there. And this is why we need to uphold the governor's emergency power so that his team could, help us with contact tracing so that we can reach out to other family members, to other community members that may have been exposed. And to really, see what can we do to reach out to these communities that are heavily impacted by COVID-19 when we look at some of these data where African American are 6 times more likely to contract this disease, this virus, than white Minnesotans, where Latinx community members are 7 times more likely to contract this disease than white Minnesotans, when we know that the population in the state of Minnesota does not reflect that. And so as we go forward, members, I really hope that all of you will actually try to listen to the family members, the Minnesotans in the state who has been impacted by COVID-19 and who has experienced some of these deaths and are hurting and are trying to get back on their feet. And so I just ask for that respect from all of you when we speak about this and, not really drive that fear into our families. And so, Madam Speaker, I just want to say thank you very much, and that we need to uphold the governor's emergency power so that we could learn more about this disease and protect Minnesotans.
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Lots of conversations about things, and again, things are getting heated. I just have, I guess, one of the reasons I wanted to ask for this vote today and to remove the powers, or to at least have the chance to vote on the powers, is because of what I call the lack of some guardrails with the governor's office and some of his agencies when it comes to some handling of business issues out in Minnesota that are scaring the bejesus out of me. Recently, a restaurant that I came to in contact with was concerned when they received, not only concerned, they were livid. They received a OSHA inspection, and this is a restaurant, a 50-seat restaurant. That's a pretty small restaurant in Minnesota. And this owner, who was an owner that I think is a lot like the way I operate and did operate, my staff would have masks on all the time. And we are very careful about being very aware of the situation. I'm not laughing at the mask people who wear them or don't wear them. I respect the folks that choose or not to choose. But in the restaurant, my staff wouldn't have a choice. You have to kind of wear them because I think it is something right now that my customers would notice if it's not. But here's an operator who has all of her employees in masks. But she got a $7,000 penalty because a server went outside and they couldn't hear her. The customers at a picnic table couldn't hear what she was saying, so she dropped it below her mouth, told them what the specials were, told them so they could understand it, put it back up. And for that reason, the Department of Labor cited the employer did not use the COVID-19 related precautions to protect employees from potential exposure to the virus, specifically for social distancing and for the not wearing of an employee mask while waiting on a customer. They cited it as Minnesota Statutes 182.653. The employer did not furnish to each employee conditions of employment and to place of employment free of recognized hazards which caused or were likely to cause death or serious injury to employees. Now, the reason I bring this up is this is one example of a business, 50-seat restaurant, now able to serve a few people outside, which is going to change shortly, and getting a $7,000 fine for a slipping down of the mask so they could hear her, and then it goes back up. And the other thing, it's not even on the citation, but they said verbally that there was an issue with they don't take reservations there consistently. Well, there's a reason for that. And there's a reason why a lot of restaurants can't take reservations, because people congregate there. They want to get them through there, so they want to sit them down. So people don't always have the ability to call in and make a reservation. Sometimes people are traveling from out of state, have no idea what the rules are here in Minnesota. And because we are trying to get people through the doors at a safe level, 50% is the rule, we are doing everything we can in the restaurant industry to make this thing work. But in this case, a small 50-seat restaurant got a $7,000 fine. So I ask you, and again, Representative Lee, you had a great comment there. You used the word respect a lot, and you're one of the representatives I've respected so much with our working on One Minnesota Day at the beginning of our session last year. And I'm glad you're doing well, and I hope everybody in your family is doing well. But I want the respect of my constituents back here in Candiotay County, because I don't feel like when we come together on our fourth session here, in the last three sessions, we've not had the opportunity to even take a vote. I guess when people ask me, Dave, why aren't you taking away the executive orders? Why is it the same as it was 180 days later? Why is it the same that it was at the beginning back in March? And I keep saying I can't take the vote. They don't allow us to take the vote. Now, Representative Winkler might at the end of this long, heated conversation to say we took a vote. Well, we did at the end of session. real session and regular session, but we haven't taken one for the last 3 special sessions. So I want the respect that your side gets, because you can just say, no, we're not even going to take the vote. So I ask my friends and colleagues on the other side of the aisle, why can't my voice and our voice of my 40,000 citizens have my chance to say, I think we should just have a vote? You're not even let us get to that point when we suspend the rules to take this vote on this heated issue. People are angry today because we're fighting like dogs and cats, because I feel like we're caught in a corner. So we want to come out fighting and swinging. I don't think we have any intent of not caring for one another and showing a lot of passion for each other. But when you put us in corners and we have to come out swinging, that's sometimes how it looks. But we are just asking to allow us to take the vote. You put your name on your yes or no button when it comes to the executive orders. I think this is different today than it was on March 16th. So, Madam Speaker, I just have a question to ask Representative Cantrell, if he would yield to a question, please.
He will yield. Representative Baker.
Madam Speaker and Representative Cantrell, I know early on in the conversation you had stood up. You were one of the first members that stood up. And this question could really go to anyone of your party that has spoken to not support this suspension of the rules. So, Representative Cantrell, help me understand why you don't think it's important for us to take this vote. Why do you think my asking for that respect and that honor that we get for having an election certificate, why is it that your team doesn't want me to take the vote to change the executive orders or to drop those rules? Why is it that you don't think that's even worth me having a voice on that?
Representative Cantrell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Baker, the legislature is exercising its discretion now, as it has in the past, in terms of whether or not to suspend the rules, to end the governor's peacetime emergency. The reason why we don't need to bring it up for a vote is because we have had this same exact vote. We've had these same exact debates time and time and time again. And frankly, if we're going to talk about a waste of the taxpayers' time, rehashing the same old arguments about, oh, this is unconstitutional, oh, this is unlawful, it just simply doesn't hold water. So, Madam Speaker, Representative Baker, we don't need to have a vote on this because we have already had a vote in the past. We know that that the peacetime emergency are powers that the legislature has statutorily provided for the governor in cases of an emergency caused by an act of nature, which COVID-19 is. And Madam Speaker, Representative Baker, we simply are at a point where we need to continue doing the work of helping to navigate, or helping the state navigate through this pandemic, and simply wasting everyone's time voting on a resolution to end the peacetime emergency will not further that pursuit at all. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Baker.
Well, Representative Cantrell, that's interesting that you know so much about how everybody thinks about so much. I am shocked at your knowledge that nobody in the House would ever change their vote from what they did 4 sessions ago, when maybe it was the last time we had a chance to vote on this in regular session. I'm shocked that you have that kind of knowledge about how everybody thinks about this pandemic 180 days after this was initially put into place. Now, if you've got restaurants or businesses that are talking to you like I have, I think folks around the state of Minnesota are hearing a lot of the same argument, a lot of the same concerns, that they're saying the governor and his agencies with $7,000 fines have gone too far. And there needs to be some guardrails here. So I'm just asking a simple question about why you won't let me take the vote. And you're just saying, this is enough already. We've had enough of this conversation. We've had enough. This is it. That is irresponsible. That's reckless. And I find that appalling that you would want to not even let me have that chance to vote again after 4 sessions later. A lot of things may have changed. You know, I supported the governor's initial action back in March, but I certainly have seen things change over time. So, members, I just want to let you know that Representative Mason had a comment about the governor and some people said in her district think he's doing a great job. I don't disagree with that. But there's a lot of people in my district, Representative Mason, that think just the opposite. And I just want to be able to push the red or green button to share my voices in my district, but you're not giving us that chance to do that. So I just wanted to understand why we don't get to take the vote. And that's the only reason we were called back today. These $7,000 fines are more money than a small 50-seat restaurant could make in a month because of what that employee did to try to explain the specials to that table. And this is an operator that does not hold a finger up to somebody in the state of Minnesota because they're asking her to wear masks. That's not the kind of operator this is. So, members, we need to get serious about asking this question to your residents and your business owners. I know we're still in a pandemic, but we can do a lot better. But you're not respecting our voices of a lot of members here by not even letting us take a vote because you think you know it all. That's sad. It's a sad day. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Noor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Madam Speaker and members, it's unbelievable that members will want to politicize COVID-19. When we got the memo saying that this is not our winning message, public safety is, that speaks of volume of where we are today as a society, as Minnesotans. Members, we need to be led by facts, not fear, and science, not lies. And members should stop spreading hate and fear about my city, about my community. This has to stop, period. As many of our young kids are going back to school, many are going in person, distance learning or hybrid. My home is now a mini school. While my wife is teaching her second graders, I have got elementary students, middle school and high schooler. They are all learning from home. I really want them to be in classroom, but this is not something that we can really decide at this point. We are not there yet to safely and responsibly reopen schools in my community. Members, I have lost loved ones. Many of my family members have contracted COVID-19, as Representative Lee has expressed the same issue. And many of my community members have lost their lives to COVID-19. And some are in hospitals right now fighting for their lives. As we all know, COVID-19 has not been a great equalizer, and it has disproportionately impacted people of color indigenous in our state. Indeed, that is our failure to act to prevent the issues, the underlying circumstances that led to it. Many of them cannot afford to work remotely and are more likely to be on the front lines working as essential workers. Members, COVID-19 continues to spread in our communities in our state. The peacetime emergency has provided tools to save lives and livelihoods for a fact, because if we will have reopened in many places, many people will have lost their lives. It has really helped us to avoid a major impact, a devastating impact because of COVID-19. We have to, and we must continue to take necessary steps to protect our lives and the ones we love and care about most, while preventing another spike in COVID-19 related cases, hospitalization, and deaths. This is a fact. The failure for my colleagues to understand the problem that we're facing today is not something that will make us sit back and wait. For my colleagues who have shown no understanding, who have shown that they're not interested in making sure that we protect the lives and the livelihoods of the people that we represent. Today, I ask you to oppose the motion that we have in front of us. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker and members. I will be voting no on this motion. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I urge you to vote no. We've now entered our fourth special session debate on this topic. We've had multiple votes, endless speeches. A few words that struck me today and kind of struck a chord with me was the expression from Representative Gruenhagen, which is that it is, quote, a fact from my perspective, which I think highlights exactly the challenge we face in combating this disease together. We repeatedly heard the phrase fear porn in reference to public health advisories. Repeatedly heard the words monarch and dictator for a governor who is lawfully exercising powers that we have given him to protect and save lives. But my particular favorite was car looting, which I don't know if that's going to hit Twitter and kind of make it big or not, but that's a particularly new form of word choice that I think is really trying to go after the fear that many people feel in this election and exploit it. So members, that's not how we're going to accomplish anything in this pandemic. We actually need to follow science and data. We can argue about that, disagree about what orders or what approaches are the best, but to contain the coronavirus, we can't just have facts from our perspective. We can't undermine the professionals who are keeping us safe. We can talk about the first responders and others who are on the front lines, the front line workers who are helping us be safe, but then we actually have to deliver for them. That means we should pass a supplemental budget to help personal care attendants get pay they need to stay on the job, to help keep jobs alive in northern Minnesota, to help create jobs and projects around the state with the bonding bill. We need to do the work and not just throw carelessly words around that frankly just show how unready we are as a body to take up this task. Please vote no.
Representative New.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. So we, at this point, are officially in the longest peacetime emergency in the history of Minnesota. When all of this started, we agreed that there was need for quick action. We had to take this very seriously. There were a lot of unknowns. We didn't know what was happening with COVID-19. And interestingly, in those first few weeks, we did some of our very best bipartisan work. We passed funding, we passed into law things to make it easier, actually, for agencies and the governor to do their jobs. And we passed significant funding to make sure that we had personal protective equipment, that we could prepare our facilities and our hospitals to make sure they were ready for COVID. And the good news is we've done those things. But we did that. We worked together in those initial days because we were looking out for the safety of all Minnesotans. That's our job. Now, what we know is that COVID is serious. But the emergency, what we were doing in those initial weeks and even months, has passed. The emergency is over, but ending the peacetime emergency does not mean that we stop our response to COVID. The governor has falsely been stating that people who oppose his unilateral power in this don't think we should do anything about COVID. He told a national media outlet that we want to stop all testing. Like, this is nonsense. This is silliness. It's not what we are proposing. We are proposing that the legislature work together, that we do our jobs, that we take responsibility for our work to keep Minnesotans safe. as we talk about keeping Minnesotans safe, I can't help but think myself and reflect on this day 19 years ago. I was actually living in New Jersey at the time, not far from New York. And for the weeks following 9/11, we could smell the burning from our home. And I remember talking to someone very close to me following immediately in the aftermath. Because you'll remember at that time, there was a lot of focus on the first responders, on the 343 firefighters who lost their lives that day, on the 8 EMTs and paramedics who lost their lives that day, and on the 60 law enforcement officers who lost their lives that day. And of course, we know that there were about 3,000 other Americans who lost their lives that day. And I was talking to someone close to me, and she was a little bothered, and she said, you know, these first responders, why are their lives so much more important than everybody else's? And my response was that they're not. Their lives are not more important, but there's a difference. There's a difference when we're talking about the people who are coming out of the buildings and the people who were going in. These first responders, these firefighters, these law enforcement officers put their lives, their very lives, on the line. They gave their lives that day. We've been focusing, rightly so, on COVID for the last 6 months. And as a legislature, that's a good thing. That's our job, that's our responsibility. And that's what we're asking for today, to be able to focus on that, and to be able to do our jobs, and to be able to be part of the solution. But there are other crises happening in Minnesota right now. We've seen a dramatic increase in crime. Businesses are shutting down and fleeing our major cities. It's likely that between the government response to COVID and increasing crime we've seen, that hundreds of thousands of jobs will not come back to our cities. Over the last few months, we have dealt monthly with COVID. We have passed police reform in this body, and yet we've done very little to address the crime that's happening and to provide our law enforcement officers the support that they need to do their jobs, putting their lives on the line every day. Today, right now, we have the opportunity again to do our jobs. It's time to transition away from calling this an emergency and move to the management phase of COVID. It's time for us to step up as legislators and do our jobs. This is literally the only reason we are here today, is to take this vote. It's the only reason we are here, is to take this vote. Members, I would encourage you to vote green on suspending the rules so we can at least have an honest discussion and move forward in how we handle our current situation.
Seeing no further discussion.
Madam Speaker, I request a roll call.
Representative New requests a roll call. Are there 15 hands? Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. The clerk will take the roll on the motion to suspend the rules.
Acom.
Acom, no.
Acom, no. Albright.
Albright, aye.
Albright, aye. Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Backer. Backer.
Okay, Backer, aye.
Backer, aye. Bonner.
Bonner, no.
Bonner, no. Barr.
Barr, aye.
Barr, aye. Baker.
Baker votes aye.
Baker, aye. Becker Finn. Becker Finn, no. Bennett. Bennett. Bernardi.
Bernardi, no.
Bernardi, no. Bierman.
Bierman, no.
Bierman, no. Bow.
Bow, aye.
Bow, aye. Brand.
Brand votes no.
Brand, no. Cantrell. Cantrell, no. Carlson, A.
Carlson A, no.
Carlson, A, no. Carlson, L.
Carlson L, no.
Carlson, L, no. Christensen.
Christensen, no.
Christensen, no. Claflin.
Claflin, no.
Claflin, no. Considine, excused. Daniels.
Daniels votes aye.
Daniels, aye. Doubt.
Doubt, aye.
Doubt, aye. Davids. Davids, aye. Davney.
Dabney, no.
Davney, no. Dean.
Dean, no.
Dean, no. Damath.
Damath votes aye.
Damath, aye. Detmer.
Detmer, aye.
Detmer, aye. Drazkowski. Drazkowski, aye. Eklund.
Eklund, no.
Eklund, no. Edelson.
Edelson, no.
Edelson, no. Elkins.
Elkins, no.
Elkins, no. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. Fabian. Fabian, aye. Fisher.
Fisher, no.
Fisher, no. Franzen. Franzen, aye. Freiberg.
Freiberg, no.
Freiberg, no. Garofalo.
Garofalo, aye.
Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, no.
Gomez, no. Green.
Green, aye.
Green, aye. Grossel.
Grossel, aye.
Grossel, aye. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Gunther. Gunther. Haley.
Haley, aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson.
Halverson, no.
Halverson, no. Hamilton. Hamilton. Hanson.
Hanson, no.
Hanson, no. Hassan. Hassan. Hausman.
Hausman, no.
Hausman, no. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Heinzman.
Heinzman, aye.
Heinzman, aye. Herr.
Her, no.
Herr, no. Hertos.
Hertos, aye.
Hertos, aye. Hornstein.
Hornstein, no.
Hornstein, no. Howard.
Howard, no.
Howard, no. Hewitt. Hewitt, no. Johnson.
Johnson, aye.
Johnson, aye. Jordan.
Jordan, no.
Jordan, no. Jurgens. Jurgens. Keel.
Keel, aye.
Keel, aye. Cleavorn.
Cleaborn, no.
Cleavorn, no. Cagle.
Cagle, no.
Cagle, no. Katiza Watun.
Katiza Watun, no.
Katiza Watun, no. Kosnick.
Cosmic aye.
Kosnick, aye. Kreshaw.
Reshaw, aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Kunish Podine.
Kunish Podine, no.
Kunish Podine, no. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee.
Lee, no.
Lee, no. Lesh.
Lesh, no.
Lesh, no. Liebling.
Liebling, no.
Liebling, no. Lean.
Lane, no.
Lean, no. Lily.
Lily, no.
Lily, no. Lippert.
Lippert, no.
Lippert, no. Lislegard.
Lislegard, aye.
Lislegard, aye. Long.
Long, no.
Long, no. Lucero. Lucero, aye. Lewick.
Lewick, aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
Mahoney, no.
Mahoney, no. Mann, excused. Mariani.
Mariani, no.
Mariani, no. Marquardt.
Marquardt, aye.
Marquardt, aye. Mason.
Mason, no.
Mason, no. McDonald. McDonald. Mecklen.
Mecklen, aye.
Mecklen, aye. Miller.
Miller, aye.
Miller, aye. Moeller.
Moeller, no.
Moeller, no. Moran.
Moran, no.
Moran, no. Morrison.
Morrison, no.
Morrison, no. Munson.
Munson, aye.
Munson, aye. Murphy.
Murphy, no.
Murphy, no. Nash. Nash, aye. Nelson M.
Nelson M, no.
Nelson M, no. Nelson N.
Nelson N, aye.
Nelson N, aye. New. New, aye. Nor.
No, no.
Nor, no. Nornis.
Nornis, aye.
Nornis, aye. Novotny. Novotny.
Novotny, aye.
Novotny, aye. O'Driscoll.
O'Driscoll, aye.
O'Driscoll, aye. Olson. Olson, no. O'Neill.
O'Neill, aye.
O'Neill, aye. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, no.
Purcell, no. Petersburg.
Petersburg, aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto. Pinto.
Pinto, no.
Pinto, no. Poppy.
Poppy, no.
Poppy, no. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, no.
Pryor, no. Quam.
Quam, aye.
Quam, aye. Richardson.
Richardson, no.
Richardson, no. Robbins. Robbins, aye. Runbeck.
Runback, aye.
Runbeck, aye. Sandell.
Sandell, no.
Sandell, no. Sandsted.
Sandsted, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauk.
No.
Sauk, no. Schumacher.
Schumacher, aye.
Schumacher, aye. Schultz.
Schultz, no.
Schultz, no. Scott.
Scott, aye.
Scott, aye. Stevenson.
Stevenson, no.
Stevenson, no. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski. Swazinski. Tabke.
Tabke, no.
Tabke, no. Tice.
Tice, aye.
Swazinski, aye.
Tice, aye. Swazinski.
Aye.
Swazinski, aye.
Aye.
Torkelson.
Torkelson, aye.
Torkelson, aye. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang. Vang.
Vang, no.
Vang, no. Vogel.
Vogel, aye.
Vogel, aye. Wagenius.
Wagenius, no.
Wagenius, no. Wozlowick.
Wozlowick, no.
Wozlowick, no. West.
West, aye.
West, aye. Winkler. Winkler, no. Wogamot.
Wogamot, no.
Wogamot, no. Zhang J. Excused. Zhang T.
Zhang T, no.
Zhang T, no. Joachim.
Joachim, no.
Joachim, no. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, no. Bennett. Bennett. Gunther. Gunther. Hamilton. Hamilton. Hassan.
Hassan, no.
Hassan, no. Jurgens.
Jurgens votes aye.
Jurgens, aye. McDonald. McDonald. Hamilton.
Try once more, Rod. Okay, once more.
Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. McDonald. McDonald, aye.
We will hold on until we get every vote recorded. So it'll just take a minute here checking who else needs to call in.
Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, aye. Gunther. Gunther. Gunther.
Representative Gunther, we can't hear you, so your staff is trying to call you. Maybe you might need to hang up to take that call.
Gunther. Gunther, aye.
There being 64 ayes and 67 nays, the motion does not prevail. Without objection, we will revert to motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there's no objection, we will take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail. We are at the item announcements. I'd like to recognize Representative Pawlowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On August 23rd of this year, Representative Bernie Leader passed away. He was 97 years old. For 25 of those years, he served in the Minnesota House of Representatives. And for a good part of that time, he was the chair of the House Transportation Finance Committee. It is there that he set a standard for transportation finance bills and budget bills that are still referenced to this day in committee and on the Minnesota House floor. He probably now, though, is equally known as the last World War II veteran to serve in the Minnesota House of Representatives. And the irony of that is that over those 25 years he served, he rarely, if ever, mentioned his service in World War II. For those of you that did not serve with Representative Leader, or after he left the House, were able to participate in the presentations that he did on his service in World War II, they were spectacular. He would get up and talk for 2 hours about his service in World War II. He would start when he landed in Calais the day after D-Day and how he fought as an infantryman through northern France, into Belgium, and then into Germany. It was a startling performance. I had the opportunity several times to witness Representative Leader, and each time I was usually one of them that was riding with him to wherever he was going to go. He would tell us that he was apologizing in advance, that there probably wouldn't be many people at this event, and that it was very nice of us to accompany him. And each time we went, they were bringing in chairs for the overflow crowds. One of the things that happened in his speech, he would talk about when he entered Germany. And he was part of the infantry that would liberate the concentration camps. He grew up in Hanover, Minnesota. He spoke fluent German, and he was asked to help the survivors of the concentration camps adjust themselves into what would hopefully become ordinary life. He never thought very much of it. He just did it because he spoke German. I believe that when I'm finished, Representative Hornstein will articulate in detail the reaction of the state of Israel to what Representative Leader did for those survivors of the concentration camps. When I was asked by his daughter Jane to be a pallbearer at the graveside service on September 19th, I asked for some details as to what we were going to do. And she said, well, we're still working those out. I told her that I would hope they would be worked out, because if we goof this up, I know I would hear Bernie's voice coming out of the coffin saying, guys, if you put me down, I'll show you how to do this properly. She laughed and said, yes, that would be exactly what her father would do. I'm going to conclude today with the same couple of things that were in Bernie's obituary. First, occasionally, treat yourself to a little chocolate. And then always, always exercise your right to vote. Madam Speaker, I think that there is at least one other member who would wish to speak. Thank you.
Representative Hornstein.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for that wonderful tribute, Representative Pulaski. I am deeply saddened by the death of Representative Bernie Leader. He was my friend and mentor on transportation issues, but also exemplified to our state what it means to approach public service with integrity, decency, compassion, and civility. But this afternoon, members, I want to share with you a story about Representative Leader that did not take place in this chamber or in his home district of Crookston. My story takes place at Israel's Holocaust Memorial, Yad Vashem. Bernie and I traveled to Jerusalem as part of a legislative delegation to the region in 2009. Prior to leaving on the trip, Bernie told me a story about his service in the Army's 102nd Infantry Division during World War II. He talked of how he fought in the Battle of the Bulge and how his division marched through Germany and liberated several Nazi forced labor camps, including one at Gardelhagen, where ahead of the Allied advance, the Nazis herded prisoners into a barn and set it ablaze just before Bernie's division arrived. Hundreds were burned alive. Representative Leader was one of the first Allied soldiers to witness the grisly scene. As a child of Holocaust survivors, Representative Leader's service and sacrifice hold special resonance for me. So when I found out he would be joining our legislative trip, I told Bernie's story to the museum officials at Yad Vashem. And after hearing that story, the museum wanted to honor their special visitor from Crookston. They proposed a ceremony during our visit, and during that event, the museum's director thanked Representative Leader for his service as a liberator. And Representative Leader then laid a wreath at Yad Vashem's Hall of Remembrance. I will never forget that powerful moment. Bernie, then 86 years old, laid that wreath, then took 2 steps backward, faced the wreath, and then gave a soldier's salute. And I can tell you, Madam Speaker and members, there was not a dry eye in the House. Last summer, just over a year ago, I visited Bernie in Crookston. It was the last time I saw him. We spent a fantastic day together, and we talked more about his military service in Germany. I mentioned to him that I was going to be visiting the Bavarian town of Deggendorf, where my parents met at a displaced persons camp, as part of my ongoing interest in my family's history. With a sparkle in his eye, Bernie then told me that he was stationed in Deggendorf after the war. Amazing, I said. When exactly? I asked Bernie. 1946, he answered. And I told him that was the year my parents lived in the camp there. I'll never know if Bernie and my parents' paths crossed in Deggendorf, but that powerful coincidence of just knowing that Bernie may have lived in close proximity to my parents in Germany in 1946 will forever live with me. Bernie was a hero. Bernie Leader was an honorable man. Bernie Leader was a mensch. May his name forever be for a blessing.
Members, please join me for a moment of silence for Representative Bernie Leader. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I will ask for another moment of silence shortly to honor the passing of another former member of this body, Edgar Olson, who was a neighbor and very close friend of Representative Leader, a neighbor both in the state office building and in neighboring districts in northwestern Minnesota, from, frankly, a different era in Minnesota. Representative Edgar Olson was 82 when he passed away from a brief illness on Thursday, August 20th. He was raised in rural Fawston on the family homestead and grew up speaking Norwegian, learning English only when he began attending the Sunnyside Country School. He attended the Fawston High School and graduated in the class of 1955, where he was an active member of 4-H and FFA and played football and basketball. He briefly attended NDSU and returned to farming full-time. Edgar met his first wife, Phyllis Marquardt, at the 1956 Minnesota State Livestock Show in St. Paul. They were married in 1957 and made their home on their family homestead in Fawston. They had 2 children, Christine and John, and unfortunately, Phyllis passed away in 1991. During his life, Representative Olson was an active leader in the local community, from 4-H and FFA to the Bethlehem Lutheran Church, the East Polk County Fair, Red River Valley Winter Show Boards, and the Garden Valley Telephone Board. Having been politically active within the Democratic Farmer-Labor Party through his life, Representative Olson was elected to the Minnesota State House in 1984 and represented District 2B. He served in the legislature until 1998. Representative Olson met his second wife, Julie Blyle, through their shared interest in agriculture and politics. The couple were together for many years and most recently resided in Madison and Roseville, Minnesota. Edgar and Julie enjoyed traveling, especially trips in Australia, New Zealand, and Norway. Members, this has been a challenging day in the Minnesota House of Representatives, and I think it's good for us to end on remembering the service of 2 distinguished members of this body. I'd ask for a moment of silence.
Members, please rise for a moment of silence for Edgar Olson, former Representative Edgar Olson. Are there any other announcements? Representative Winkler offers the following motion.
Winkler moves that the chief clerk be and is hereby instructed to correct and approve the Journal of the House 2024 special session for today, Friday, September 11th, 2020, and that he authorized to include in the journal for today any subsequent proceedings.
Representative Winkler.
Members, please vote yes.
All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails.
Winkler moves that the chief clerk be and is hereby instructed to inform the Senate and the governor by message that the House of Representatives is about to adjourn the 2024 special session sine die.
Representative Winkler.
Again, members, please vote yes.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn this special session sine die.
Representative Winkler moves that the House do now adjourn this special session sine die. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The House stands adjourned sine die.